Welcome back, everybody, to the Triad of the Fours podcast, a podcast from Puerto Rican friends coming together to do deep dives into Star Wars and other nerd-related media. We are not quite done with Andor yet. If you haven't watched it, do yourself a favor. All 12 episodes are on Disney+. It is fantastic. We loved it. We did our reviews of all the 12 episodes with fantastic guests, so check those out as well. But as there was so much Andor happening and they were being released so fast, I feel like there were a lot of things that we didn't talk about maybe as much as we wanted to in each episode. So we just wanted to release one where we kind of talked about those things that we feel like we didn't dedicate enough time to them and just kind of reminisce a little bit of Andor Season 2 as a whole, which we will do an episode of that because we're planning on doing a rewatch of Rogue One. I think I'm going to do that today after lunch because after watching the 12 episodes, you really want to watch Rogue One again.
That's a good lazy Sunday.
I know, it's fantastic.
Or not so lazy because it's going to be a little anxiety driven.
It's a lot. It's a lot. Wally and I, Josbando, we binge watched the entire season 2 of Andor between yesterday and today.
Oh wait, so you were rewatching it with Josbando. Yep. Oh my god! I mean, yeah, it's amazing, but also my god, that's intense.
Yeah, and as soon as it was done, Josbando was like, "Okay, let's watch Rogue One." I was like, "Oh, I need to get ready because I'm actually recording, so we can watch it afterwards."
But see, it's gonna be interesting because when you finish that one, you'll be like, "Oh, now we have to watch A New Hope." It's just now those are engineered to Daisy Shane back to back.
That is not a bad problem to have.
It's not really. But yeah, it's good because I refuse. Like we were talking about it, like in the last one, it went by so quickly, and it's really hard in one episode. I mean, in one podcast
of ours,
recording episode to kind of go through
to cover all 3 episodes at once.
And then, when we're there, we're trying to get those released as soon as possible. So we're not necessarily rushing because I think we do a good job of pacing ourselves and talking about everything. But there's, and we have a guest, so it's always kind of a rush to the finish line to get everything. So inevitably, things will get lost. So it's always nice to kind of go back and look back and see, like, hey, what were some of the things that we could have hit on with a little more depth, but also with relaxation. Now, we're recording on a Sunday. It's a beautiful day. We're not tired after work. Our brains are allegedly fully functioning now. We're and we refuse to let go of Andor. I almost kind of want to keep recording about Andor for the amount of time we would have if they had released
them episode by episode.
Episode by episode. Yeah. But yeah, let's get this Andor. Let's continue this Andor party. Like now in the haze, like now that you did a rewatch actually, and a rewatch with someone else that was watching it for the first time. Anything that has stuck out to you in particular that we maybe kind of missed on our first go around?
Right. So I want to talk about Saw. We didn't get to touch on that character all that much, and he's such a weird guy, I mean, we've seen that ever since he started showing up in Clone Wars, right? And we know how he is. I obviously have to watch Rogue One again because it's been years, and it was painfully obvious during our last recording that I need a rewatch because there are clearly things that I'm misremembering. But we saw now in this season kind of like how he got to be the extra weirdness that he is in Rogue One, and so much made sense. Like when we find out about his obsession with Rito, I mean, it's like, oh, that makes so much things make sense now. So I think it was really cool that we got to see him, the levels of paranoia, how that happened and how it like increased with each passing moment. And then to get that actual view of him towards the end with like already the mask and how we get to see him in Rogue One and to do that transition and to see, the kind of guy that he is through, relationship with Wilman it was such a, good idea to have the interactions be with him that I think it really flushed out a lot of it. And we get a sense of how he was always an extremist, but I think at the beginning of the show, he's a little bit more similar to Luthen and then we
Mhm.
start to see that he's like even worse,
Yeah.
Luthen, even though Luthen, like, it really stuck out to me this time how Lonnie was done super
Mhm.
dirty. After, you know, he gave absolutely everything, and he had a family. And Luthen, the whole speech that first season, that was fantastic. It's about, how we have to sacrifice everything, but there's a deal in place, and
Mhm.
he just left him dead on a bench. So that's two characters that I feel like we should talk about a little bit more, Lonnie and Saw, even though they're completely different people. But
Yeah, Lonnie, the unsung hero. But you're
yep,
absolutely right about Saw, and it's something that in my first watch of the season I didn't particularly appreciate. Maybe because I was kind of trying to get through it as fast as possible.
yeah,
I was a little disappointed, right, with Saw's appearance in the show. Uh, but on the rewatch, and obviously then seeing kind of like as we're talking
yeah,
about it and all those
hmm
things, a lot more appreciation, especially when you kind of rewatch the whole of the second season and reframe it in terms of
right,
what we were talking about last time. Oh my god, how Denise Goff was talking about tribes versus gangs and like how everyone comes
yeah,
together, especially with the first arc of the season of the second season being about bumbling rebels trying to come together and not
yeah,
agreeing in how they're going to function as a unit, and
yeah,
then that being mirrored and the on the final arc with the rebellion and proper, but still kind of having that internal dysfunction with people that are trying to just get to the same goal but somehow not cooperating with each other,
yeah,
and obviously framed with the hologram of Saw fighting with Mon Mothma, and Mon Mothma's being
yeah.
like, I know you're a Jedi." She's like, "You have no idea where I am."
Yeah.
It's like it's
it's,
which is so funny, right? Because you're
it's like,
creating
we know you're there, dude. We
it,
know.
yeah, and also the thing of creating enemies out of allies, which I think is such
Yeah,
a relevant topic nowadays, especially with everything that we've talked about this whole
yeah,
year, right? Of
hmm
seeing like how the election was won by a side that was able to kind of come together and lost by people by a group that just couldn't come together because we
hmm
like it's so
too busy fighting amongst
yeah,
ourselves.
so much virtue signaling, and like
Yeah,
who's gonna
hmm
be more liberal than the other, that then they then
yeah,
the whole movement collapses. And it's mirrored with that scene in season one between Luthen and Saw, when
yeah,
Luthen's just asking Saw, "Aren't you tired of fighting with people who agree with you?"
yeah,
And then Saw gives that awesome answer, which is, I mean, awesome in terms of like the writing and delivery of the show, not awesome
right.
because I agree with it. But he's just like, "I am the only one with clarity of purpose." And that
Yeah,
just continues to devolve until that point where he's just huffing uh,
right.
a gasoline basically, or fuel,
Yeah,
or I forget exactly what the Rido is, but to that extent becoming the extreme opposite of Luthen, because they're both kind of similar characters,
yeah,
working within the fringes of the rebellion to help
hmm
bring down the empire and build up a resistance, but then coming at it from questionable methods. But in the
hmm
end, one is about isolationism, and the other one is about the group mentality. And even though Luthen is in the shadows and kind of isolated with Clea, he's still more
hmm
group minded than Luthen is, because he understands that the rebellion needs to be built out of more people, and that's why he rescues Mon Mothma and helps
hmm
establish the base in Javin, even though he can never get to it because it's the sunset he knows he'll never see. But yeah,
right.
Luthen, the anti Saw in the anti Saw the anti Luthen in
hmm
many ways, and delivering an epic speech, which you can tell that Forrest Whitaker was just having the best of times
Oh yeah.
with that character.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And he's so masterfully played. Like the choice to use that tone of voice to me has always been like, how did you come up with that? Um, but it just like adds so much layer to the character as a whole, and you can tell, yeah, you can tell that he was having an amazing time filming that scene with Wilman, and how uh, Rido is like a family member almost. It was kind of insane, but it was
And
good. It was good.
and I saw a lot of people make this connection, which I didn't think about initially because
Hmm
my brain's just not wired like this. Where he's calling Rido his sister,
Right.
and talking about how he loves her so much, and then it's like people online rightfully were pointing out to that parallel, which I'm not particularly convinced that it was an intentional parallel that the writers were drawing from, because I'm pretty sure that they haven't seen the Clone Wars, but the parallel with like Saw's sister in the Clone Wars, which he
Right.
loses and kind of
Mhm.
is the catalyst for him to kind of go even harder
Yeah.
in his fight against the separatists then, and then
Mhm.
the Empire afterwards, which I think is kind of those neat little pieces of characterization
Mhm.
that are sprinkled throughout that help maintain the essence of the character that we know, because sometimes that's kind of lost when a translation from animation to live action or from a
Yeah.
book to a different, when things are jumping medium, sometimes
Mhm.
their essence is lost or transformed. And I think that Saw is a character that has been pretty strengthened, I think, in every single iteration that he's been in. You can definitely see that there's a, at least to me, right? And so I'm interested to know like how you see it. But like
Mhm.
definitely like a through line that carries through his characterization from Clone Wars, then into Rogue One, which is when we see him next time, and then from Rogue One
Mhm.
to Rebels, and
Yeah.
then Andor, and then obviously now kind of full circle back into Rogue One. Even though he also has appearances in the Jedi Fallen Order games, which is also amazing, also voiced by Forrest Whitaker. But each of those moments, it's different versions of Saw,
Yeah.
but the same one. So I don't know. Like, do you
Yeah.
feel like there's, especially with the Saw from Rebels, which is still voiced by Forrest Whitaker, do you feel like there's any tonal differences between them? Because now rewatching some of the Rebels Saw Gerrera scenes, I'm just like, damn, this. It feels like it was like they planned for all of this, even though they obviously
Yeah.
didn't because there's so many years in between. But it's pretty amazing. How did you feel about an animated Saw?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think they've been really consistent with the character and the fact that, Forrest Whitaker did voice so much of it. It feels like it's the same guy. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
you don't get that disconnect you get sometimes like uh for example, with Anakin maybe in the Clone Wars, he feels
Yeah,
like a bit different,
yeah,
from
100%.
Anakin we get from the films. And but Saw has always felt like it's the same character,
Hmm.
and his development makes sense. Like you can see where he's coming from and why he makes the decisions that he makes, because it was done so beautifully in all the different mediums. So I mean, he's
Hmm.
still weird as hell, but but it's he's just always been Saw. So, I think it's just really well done throughout. I can't believe they actually pulled it off, to be honest, that they could bring this character through so many media, and it always just feels like this really crazy character that is a hero in some ways and is a villain in a lot of other ways, and is a version of very extremist. You want to be the good guy, but you go about it in really bad ways. So it's a really fine line with Saw. I think Saw is more on
Yeah,
the villain side. Yeah.
I mean, but it's one of those things where it's just it's the bad thing done for the right reasons, a
Yeah.
good thing. That's a philosophical question that I don't think we're capable of answering
Yeah.
today. But
But it makes
it's
for good TV.
it makes for great. I mean, it makes for great TV
Yeah.
because
Mhm.
life isn't, especially like in situations of rebellion, resistance, and warfare,
Yeah.
like
It's not all black
the
and
Star
white.
Wars shows.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's not binary, right? You don't,
Mhm.
rarely does like just doing like absolutely altruistic things in face of like these evils of governments and fascism and whatnot lead to pure victory. Unfortunately, there's things of there people have to get their hands dirty. Like World War II.
Mhm.
The Allies didn't win against Nazism by being like, please, sir, can you please put your guns down because the Holocaust is bad. And it's like, no, you had to go pick up a gun and
Yeah.
go and fight. And it's one of those things that's just like the unfortunate realities of a lot of these things. So as much as Mon Mothma wants to be idealistic and a peacekeeper and
Yeah.
a lot of these things, Saw and Luthen have that point. Just like, well, you have to
Yeah.
at one point put words into action. And to Mon Mothma's credit, a lot of people like say that she's kind of a spineless liberal, but she's funding a rebellion, an armed rebellion, and defects into it and is hiding and is running from the
Mhm.
empire. So actually, her idealism is turned into action in many ways, but
Well, and she sold her daughter to a,
not
mobster.
sold. I'm not gonna say
Eh,
sold.
eh,
It was complex.
eh.
It was complex. It
Yeah.
was
Mhm.
and her daughter kind of wanted that whole thing. So
True,
it's
true. I know.
you know,
Yeah, but still.
it's
I mean,
complicated. Yeah.
how good decision making were you when you were 14 though?
Not very, not very,
Right.
not
So,
very, not very. Hey, but hey,
mhm.
Natalie Portman was a queen at 14 or 16 or however old she was in episode 1. So you can apparently, at least in Star Wars. But it's but again, to go back to like the parallel between Luthen and Saw, and Luthen says
Yeah,
it in his monologue in season 1. You know, I'm condemned to use the tools of my enemy to defeat them. And
yeah.
that's even more prescient with Saw, 'cause Saw literally, you know, is going up and meeting Luthen for arms deals so he can
Yeah.
supply his resistance with little armaments of the Empire. And it's one of those really cool things too, because the show is called Andor, it's not called Guerrera, so we don't get to see
Yeah.
all the Saw angles in it there. But thanks to like books like, you know, and I keep talking about the book because it's really really good, and I anyone that's interested in Star Wars novels, I definitely 100% recommend The Mask of Fear, the
Mhm.
first one by Alexander Freed, because it does flesh out a lot more, not just Mon, not just Bail Organa,
Yeah.
but also Saw Gerrera, and it keeps, you know, like we've been talking about how the flavors of the character through animation and live action
Mhm.
are maintained also in literary
Okay.
form.
Mhm.
So, you know, excellent. And no, his whole speech is amazing. You're here. You're, what is that he said? You're where are you, boy? You're not with Luthen. You're here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Revolution's not for the sane. You think I'm crazy? I am. Revolution's not for the
Yeah.
sane. It's
Yeah. It's
amazing.
good. It's so good. It's so good. Um, but anyway, since we're doing the parallels now, what do you think about Luthen and Lonnie's just unsung death?
You know, Lonnie is an interesting character, and I've been seeing
Yeah.
a lot of people start to give him his flowers now in online, and you know, calling him the hero that he is, because he was, right. He
Mhm.
paid the ultimate price for his heroism. And it's funny, right, because that in during Luthen's speech in season 1, he's like, we need more heroes, Lonnie. You'll
Yeah.
stay, we need more heroes. And it's just like, yeah,
Mhm.
like, and Lonnie kind of paid that ultimate price in an unceremonious way, you know,
Mhm.
because it's he got the biggest secret that he could have ever found,
Right.
which is, you know, the you know, Erso, Kyber, and Jeddah. You know,
Mhm.
he got
Mhm.
those three
Yeah.
key words that were so important, which is kind of so insane to think about right now, that we live in a world, in a Star Wars world, where now Episode 4 is so much richer because we have like
Yeah.
all so much backstory to explain one little nitpick that some fans had about why does the exhaust port why would the Death Star have an exhaust port that size that will collapse the entire system? Like,
Right.
thanks to that little
Yeah.
stupid nitpick that nerds
Now
have,
we have all the story
now
behind
we
it.
have like, oh my god, thanks to that we
Yeah.
have like this Shakespearean tragedy that is Andor, the complete series, and Rogue
Yeah.
One, and now we have, now we know about this mole within the ISB that was scared for his life for 5 years, probably maybe more,
Yeah.
and you know, I'm just what one of the biggest things about Lonnie is like, yeah, you're the MVP, and thank you for doing everything you did. But in the back of my mind, I'm just like, what about his family? Because he
Right.
that was his main concern. It's just like, oh, you need to get my family out. So I'm just like,
Mhm.
did Luthen obviously, right? He didn't have time to get his family out. So
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, hoping that his family is safe somewhere, and we're able to kind of find a
Yeah.
secondary passage out of Coruscant, because yeah, the ISB
Poor
knows
Lonnie.
that
Mhm.
Lonnie Young was for 3 hours looking through Dead Ramiro's archives. So, what do you think about Lonnie?
Yeah, I mean, it's just his life is so full of anxiety, I feel
Yeah.
like. We talk a lot about that awesome scene during the gallery with Clea,
Hmm,
and
hmm. Beautiful scene.
Lonnie was also, poor Lonnie, like, just get me out of here.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
just happened to grab me in the party as a distraction. Why do I have to stand here? They're coming for me, you know? So I think that Lonnie, poor Lonnie, man. And the fact that he actually had the access to Dendra's files for like a year, but didn't use it until he absolutely felt that he had to, because he is so afraid of his life, and his life and the life of his family was in Luthen's hands, and clearly that was not not well placed because
Mhm, mhm.
clearly Luthen showed that he betrayed Lonnie. So I mean, obviously it was a time sensitive thing, and Luthen, you can tell by that point that he's become completely twisted
Mhm,
by
mhm.
everything that he's had to do. And I mean, him and Clea have been basically, living on the run with only like
Yeah.
each other for company for years, and living as spies, without having really connections to anybody else. Because Clea says it too when she finally gets to Yavin that she's talking to Vel, and it's like, I don't. Luthen used to say, know your way out before you actually go in, and I
Mhm,
I don't
mhm,
even know
mhm.
where I am right now. So there's a lot going on with all these characters, and I think Lonnie's just, poor guy
Way out of his
was.
depth.
Mm-hmm. And out of the whole thing, the most ironic to me though is that Dedra did all that digging around because she was trying to get to Luthen, and
Mhm.
because of all her
Mhm.
scavenging, is that the information gets to Luthen.
Yeah,
So when
yeah,
that
yeah,
when
good
that
point.
happened,
Always, yeah.
we were
The
watching. When I was
architect of her
watching it
own
with
destruction, yeah.
I was watching it with Husbando. Husbando like stood up from the couch, like, wait, and he paused it. Did everything she do is the reason that everything fell apart? Like without Dedra looking into Luthen, we don't get Star Wars
Mhm,
because
mhm.
nobody finds out about the Death Star and nobody's able to destroy the Death Star. So that's it. Roll credits. We're done. So I think it's I think it was really well written and well done. How, like you were saying, like good intentions. She had good intentions trying to find this, man who built the resistance, but her own hubris was her
Yeah, good
downfall.
intentions on the wrong side, though.
Bro, of course, of course. From her perspective, nobody's the villain of their own story. She thought
Mhm.
she was doing the right thing, but it lends so much to uh that interrogation with Krennic that as he's like so pissed that it's like your arrogance. I mean, how can you be so competent and incompetent at the same time?
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
You doing this and not reporting it because you're so hyper focused on getting this man that you were the leak. Oh, it's so crazy. It's so crazy.
No, but
Which
Lonnie, I mean,
yeah,
and the
Lonnie.
sad thing about Lonnie is that he's not necessarily going to be. I mean, we're gonna remember him as fans outside of the Star Wars world,
Yeah,
but within the Star Wars world, kind
yeah.
of like
Nobody's gonna know who he
no
was.
one, yeah, no one's gonna know, and it's one of those things where it's just like very kind of extremely tragic, and I mean, it obviously thematically plays into Andor because Andor's not known to be anything but tragic. This, that last hopeful scene notwithstanding, that we already talked about in our previous episode. So you can, if
Hmm.
you want to listen to our thoughts there, look at that. We're not going to talk about it anymore. There's enough discourse about it online.
Yeah,
But Lonnie, yeah, like, because yeah, sure, Mon Mothma and Luthen and many other characters are also leading this double life of being
yeah,
facing with some reality, but then the truth is mass within, and everyone has that fear of being discovered living that revolutionary truth. But Lonnie, I think, has it worse than everybody else because, well, yeah, Luthen is pretending from the comfort of his gallery. Mon
right.
Mothma is pretending from the comforts of privilege and and
Hmm.
and Senate protection to many degrees. But Lonnie's in the mouth of the lion. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? He's right there in the ISB every day,
yeah,
doing the work for the enemy also. So it's not just
right.
that
Yeah,
he's pretending and
yeah,
doing all these things like the other guys. He's just like not only pretending but doing the work for them, and
right,
all the while in a system of surveillance. So it's a thing that he could get found out in any myriad of ways, and
right.
obviously the ultimate price would probably be execution. I'm not an expert on the Empire's laws,
Probably
but it
tortured
doesn't.
then execution.
Maybe,
Mm,
I'm not sure that there's a lot of space for leniency in the Empire based on what we've seen so far.
hmm.
But yeah, and then the irony is just like, yeah, like you were escaping a fate from the Empire that would have been execution or whatever, and then unceremoniously you're executed in even in probably in an even sadder way, maybe because you were doing the right thing trying to get out, and
Right.
promises were made for you, and then those promises were immediately broken,
Mhm.
which is then so sad to then see Rogue One and see Cassian do the exact same thing to Nivik, I think is his name, from the opening scene that he summarily executes also in the same Luthen
Mhm.
fashion, which kind of makes those parallels even harder because it's just like, oh, he's
Right.
not just doing it because he's a rebel spy. He's doing it because he's of the Luthen Rail school
Yeah.
of spycraft. Ugh,
Yeah.
so bad. He doesn't even get a speech. Oh, because if you're gonna die
True.
like that to Luthen, at least give a well, but no, but that's life, right? There's no grand
Yeah.
speeches. Sometimes you just die and that's it,
Just
and
mhm.
hope that it was worth it.
So tragic. Ah, Lonnie. At least he got the message out, and in the end, a lot of people were saved because of it. So,
Yeah. We got some losses there in Scarif and
mhm.
definitely in Alderaan, but on the
Yeah.
grand scheme of
But
things,
yeah, could have been a lot worse.
could have been a
Mhm.
lot worse.
Mhm.
Then the rebellion wouldn't have gotten those plans, and Luke Skywalker wouldn't have, gotten the distress call from Leia so that he could
Mhm.
get on an X-wing and blow something up. So it all somehow works out
Mhm.
for the best. But oh my god, it's a long way to it was a long way. You can see like the trials and tribulations, and I think that's one of the best things that Andor kind of did is show that, yeah, like there's this perspective of lives and people that don't have plot armor like the main cast,
Right.
in the Skywalker saga do, and it's not just them doing their thing. It's like this whole community of people that
Yep.
are having that same effort around them and helping take that to the forefront and kind of remember that whole thing where it's just like we only remember a couple of people's names, but there's so many other
Yeah.
people that have been doing the same, if not more, of an act of rebellion that just don't get remembered because
Mhm.
there's no time, right, to remember everybody, unfortunately. And Lonnie is one of those unsung heroes, right, that we'll kind of never he'll never have a monument. So like
No.
now we as fans have to remember him and
Remember Lonnie.
remember Lonnie. Yeah, he did a lot. He did a lot. Uh,
So
uh,
aside from that, another character that was killed away too early as well, but as clearly had a lasting impact upon the rebellion, Nemik from season one and
mhm.
his glorious manifesto, which shows up again in season two. So, how do you think that was used?
Were you expecting
Um,
that? Because I was not really expecting that the manifesto was going to come back. So that was a great surprise for
yeah,
me
I
because I
really I wasn't expecting it. We were a huge fan of the manifesto like the first time around, so I really wasn't expecting it. What was your reaction when you did see it, like hear it?
well, it kind of swell, your heart kind of swells up because
Yeah.
one, the writing of it is so good. The
Oh
vocal
yeah.
performance was excellent, and then what it meant to the story on season one in terms of
Mhm.
Cassian's journey from becoming just kind of a mercenary who's trying to get out of it and doesn't want to be
Mhm.
involved to becoming a believer.
Yeah.
I think that was really powerful in a string of episodes that were giving us so many amazing speeches to lift up
Yeah.
our spirits in terms of getting us inspired to fight the empire. That while we had a bunch of speeches in season two, I think that a lot of people latched onto for different reasons or another. I feel like we never reached the heights we know from season one in terms of that prose, and I think it was so perfectly brought back because it's not in the front lines. We don't see it in the front lines like we kind of
Mhm.
did when Cassian was listening to it in that
Yeah.
somber moment, but it's in the opposite somber moment, right? Where it's just with Partagas in the ISB, and it's kind of doing the callback to what Partagas was talking about in season one, where he's talking about the rebellion as disease and how the ISB are doctors, right? And they're like
Yeah.
there to
Mhm.
treat sickness and whatnot, and how if you let it go unsupervised, it'll spread and infect the denizens
Mhm.
of the galaxy. So it's kind of funny to then see how he was framing rebellion in season one, and then in season two you see his journey come to an end, seeing that, yeah, rebellion was and has been contagious and it has been spreading across the galaxy. And what better beautiful way to kind of show that rebellion is inspiring people to pick up arms and resist the empire than Nemik's manifesto. And it's then
Yeah.
beautiful to think that Cassian decided, right, to put it out there in the world, because Cassian
Mhm.
could have just kept it He could have said
Yeah.
like, okay, this is Nemec gave this to me. The words it meant a lot to me, and they're inspiring. I'm just gonna keep it, and then
Yeah.
nothing comes out of it. But kind of having the implication, right? The suggestion that Cassian was so inspired by it that he decided to give it to someone
Mhm.
or give it to Luthen or whoever so that it spread across the galaxy and then see how it has caught fire
Mhm.
out there and that part of gas is u- useless to do anything about it and
Mhm.
see like how those words have resonated. I think is just pure poetry and it's a beautiful way to bring back Nemec's character and his words
Yeah.
that are poignant because the show has been tragic and there's so many deaths and
Yeah.
so many horrible things that happen, but that manifesto is very hopeful and very optimistic. And to then
Mhm.
weave it into the story there and at the end as we're wrapping things up, leading into Rogue One and obviously reading into A New Hope. So to kind of like
Yeah.
give that's giving the galaxy hope, I
Mhm.
think it was just beautiful. And I love Nemec and I knew that he was gonna die the minute he stepped on screen and he gave a beautiful speech and it's nice to see him just come back again even if it's just a ghost of his voice but a ghost
Yeah.
to not haunt us but inspire us.
Mhm.
What did you think what did
Well,
Josbel
I
think?
think it was haunting to Partagast.
Yeah, oh yeah, well yeah, now part I guess became a ghost.
Yeah. But I think it was because it actually like the sound starts coming in with
Mhm,
Clea, so that's when it started, and I think you can see how it can be inspiring to her and then haunting to Partagast.
mhm,
So
mhm,
I
mhm,
thought it was a really great moment, like when she's still in that like the healing bay, and she didn't get the hero's welcome that Andor had promised her, that she knew she wasn't gonna get.
mhm,
And she's just kind of she lost her father figure and person that's been by her side her whole time. I think for Clea, I mean, she didn't even want to leave Coruscant. She just
mhm,
wanted to get the message forward because I feel like, now that their mission, finding out what the Empire was up to, that's it. That's their end game. That's
yeah,
what was
yeah,
done. And she had to kill her own father, to protect him from being tortured while he was being interrogated, which was a really, really sad scene now that I was rewatching it. Like when she unplugs him and then like
yeah,
kisses his forehead and she's crying and it's like, oh my God, it's so sad, but it goes so much into like her frame of mind that, this is it. This is what he died for. I just need to get the message forward. But post that, what am I supposed to do now? I don't have any friends. I don't have any other goals than this. This was it. And my only person is gone. And then to see her, kind of removing the IVs on her hand and as she's like trying to figure out where she's gonna go, that we bring in Nemik with, his inspiration
mhm,
and beautiful, beautiful lines because that speech was so beautifully written. But then it transitions into Partagast listening to it, and it's at the point where they're talking about how you know tyranny takes effort. You have to do it every single day. The
mhm,
control is abnormal because it's unnatural. All those beautiful, beautiful things, and Partagast is like so. I mean, clearly
he's defeated,
he's
yeah,
he's clearly defeated because he takes a blaster to the head. I'm assuming the head we don't actually see, where he shoots himself.
true,
But
true,
um, when the other the Imperial guy, I forget the name, the other one,
yeah,
like, have you heard this?
oh yeah,
And it's like, oh, bits and pieces, and he's like, and this just like his voice is just like, oh, it keeps spreading. There is nothing
yeah,
I can do
mhm,
to stop it. And, obviously everything went to crap because he was one of the people in the know about the Death Star. So that was it. He didn't even have the courage to face, you know, prison like Dedra had to. So
No, no. I don't know if for better or worse. I don't know.
hmm
The only good fascist is dead fascist. But
hmm
that's just me. Because
I agree.
I mean, maybe Jedra will uh, come back to see the light and recover. I don't know. That might be a good episode for another day. Talk about some of the characters that we've seen that we know make
hmm
it, like obviously Dedra and Perrin, and maybe
hmm
talk about what their potential in Star Wars is. Because I've seen some interesting takes about Perrin specifically
Yeah.
that I want to know your thoughts about. But I think those are speculative ones for for like a different one. But
Okay.
yeah, Nemik's manifesto, it resonates, and I think it should keep
It
resonating. I
does.
think
Yeah.
that it was a great way to kind of cap the show, right? Do
Yeah.
do a bookend with it, because yeah, it's the thing that gave Cassian, inspired him to not just fight for himself and his
Hmm.
friends, but to find greater purpose in the
Right.
rebellion, and help, and help everybody. So I love our sweet boy Nemec, and I've loved him ever since the beginning, and I'm glad that he got to come back in some haunting way, so that he can remind us that his voice lives on. Ideas live
Yeah.
on, and you can snuff out the person, but you can never silence the idea, especially what's on the internet, or the hollow internet, or whatever it's called in the Star
Yeah.
Wars version. Once it's out
Hmm.
there, you can't get rid of it. But
Yeah.
that's good.
Sure.
That's good.
Sure. So I think we've touched on some topics that we weren't able to before. We're gonna definitely do then the like speculative one of the characters who did survive
Yeah,
and see where
that'll
we
be
think
good.
they
That'll
would
be
end
good.
up. Yeah,
Mhm.
that'll be good. Is there any other subject that you feel like you want to talk about today, or
You know, I
nice and
think
relaxing?
I think that I do want to talk about more stuff, because I do love Andor, and I want to
Hmm.
continue talking about it. But I think today is a good way to kind of ease back into talking about it loosely, and talk about
Yeah.
things in a more casual way. So I think we should keep it casual for today.
Okay.
But
I'm good with that. Hmm.
before we sign off, though, I did want to kind of thank everybody who has been listening to our coverage. We're small channel, so we don't get a bunch of engagement or people listening. But somehow, like, our last couple of episodes have gotten a lot more reach than it usually has. So I just want to kind of take a
Hmm.
moment to kind of thank everybody that has engaged and listened, and appreciates, in any small measure, the things that we have to say. And it's not unnoticed, and we really appreciate it. It means
Yeah.
a lot to us, because obviously we do it for ourselves, because we love to talk about Star Wars and have fun with each other. But it's
Yeah.
also nice to see that other people find it and resonate with it, and take something home with them. So thank you so much, and we hope that we
Yeah.
continue to say words that you appreciate, and continue with on our
Hopefully.
journey with
Hopefully.
us.
Yeah. Well, I thank you all as well. And especially with a show like Andor,
Yeah,
which from the beginning has been very special to us. I mean, it was the first premiere that we were invited to as the Triad. From the moment that it was announced, we were, especially, I remember I
I
was
was
really into it.
skeptical.
You were
I
a
was
little
skeptical.
skeptical,
Yeah,
but then as soon as we went to that premiere, we saw those first three episodes, and we were hooked
yeah.
right away. And it's been an amazing ride. The show, I think, is the best Star Wars show there is so far. I mean, that's my opinion. Everybody can have their own.
Yeah.
But I think it was a masterclass, and there's still a lot to talk about because so much about the show was good. The score, the costuming, the set design, my
Mhm.
God, the acting, everything was so good. The themes. So we are not done with Andor. We're
No,
gonna do a
no.
rewatch of Rogue One as well and talk about that. So stay tuned because the Triad will continue talking all things Andor
Oh yeah.
and other things Star Wars and nerddom as well. But until next time, I think we're done, right?
For now. For now.
We are Triad of the Force. Thank you so much for watching. Like, subscribe, leave a comment. Let us know what other and/or topics you feel like we should talk about more, and delve into, deep dive, and do the things that we like to do. So please let us know in the comments below. And until next time, may the Force be with
Be
you.
with you.